Imagine this. You're deep into writing your science fiction or fantasy novel. Your hero is about to unleash some game-changing power, but suddenly it feels flat. Doesn't feel like there are any stakes or logic or whatever. It's just poof. Something happens, magic, yada yada. Does this maybe sound familiar? If your magic systems are leaving people with a longing for more, or potentially scratching their heads because all they see is plot hole, you're not alone. Today, I hope we can change that. Today, we're going to be building an unbreakable foundation of the fundamentals of making magic systems. What we're going to aim to do is to make your magic systems immersive, logical, and highly addictive. I mean, fun to read. Whether that magic system is taking place in some kind of secondary fantastical world of magic monsters, or it's some kind of gritty science fiction where people using psionics for all their stuff, it's going to be roughly the same fundamentals to help hook agents, editors, and fans. All right, let's dive in. Really quick, would like to ask, hopefully everybody could like, comment, and subscribe if you're really enjoying this and you want more stuff like what I'm doing. And feel free to comment your favorite magic system below in the comment section. So what is a magic system? The basic description would be a set of system rules that govern a supernatural element in your world, or some kind of extraordinary element that is not of our world that we're familiar with. Think of it kind of like the physics of the impossible, or at least it's impossible in our world, our reality. Without this system, this framework, your story will fall apart, kind of like a house of cards in a hurricane. But why would this matter to you as a serious writer? A solid magic system with actual rules and regulation will help to prevent plot holes that could very easily tank your submission and make your work seem less than. Not only that, but it's going to be building actual tension for your story instead of having that deus machina kind of event at the end. It'll make every action with the magic feel impactful and intentional and actually mean something. Let's take Harry Potter as an example. Wand-based magics with spells in that universe create the structure that allows people to also learn it, while also creating a great deal of limits by having to have physically a wand in your hand and know exactly how to pronounce the spells correctly. On a bit of a inverse of that, you could look at the Force from the Star Wars universe. It's a bit more flowy, mystical, a little bit less structured, yet still has limitations that create the framework that allows tension and plot to function. These magic systems are not just gimmicks or a side quest or a little tiny detail of a story. They are tools to help the narrative go forward and help to resonate more with readers and be just more fun to read in general. Who doesn't like magic? So what would be the core building blocks of a magic system? Let's walk through each one of these to make it about as simple as possible with examples. You have a source that then leads to an activation, then an effect, and then a consequence. This is a good framework to devise your magic systems if you want to have somewhere to start on instead of just willy-nilly creating a system. Grab a notebook. We're going to get deep dive into this stuff. It is said that the details are what make professionals. All right, first let's talk about the source. Where does your magic come from? Think of this like the fuel tank for your magic. What's giving drive and action to the thing that it's doing? The source can be all kinds of different things, but an example could be something innate, something inside of you, like a genetic gift, kind of like mutants from X-Men. Or perhaps it's something external, like an artifact that someone found that gives someone power. Maybe enchanted rings. Or even considering science fiction side of things could be neural implants. Right now, one of the big trends is also environmental influences and sources. Kind of like ley lines channeling power in the planet, or even quantum fields and stuff like that in hard science fiction. Considering your world and previous videos about world spark stuff we've talked about, think about how your magic system will work with your theme, your world, and everything that's functioning within it. This does very much help set the tone for your story as well. Next, effect. What happens when the source is accessed and an action is taken to activate it? This is the shiny, shiny bling part of the magic system, the exciting part. Much like the fireworks that Gandalf let off in the Fellowship. Or, I guess you could technically think of the Death Star shooting its big giant laser. It's kind of crazy, wondrous, horrifying all at the same time. I bet you could probably think of a ton of different other examples that would fit in as the effect. Source leads to action, then effect, and then consequence. Now, finally, consequences. This is the cost or limitations of the magic system, and often the most tension-inducing, yet interesting part of a magic system. This specific part of a good magic system, a good fundamental, is very important. This is maybe not as flashy as all the other aspects of the fundamentals of magic systems. However, if you don't have consequences to your actions, it'll be terribly boring and break your story. It is crucial that you have consequences and costs to a magic system. What does the magic drain? What does it do to the person that had just cast the magic? What are the consequences of having that neural implant into their brain? There are lots of different variations of this. You can have a mana pool that, once it's used up, it's gone. If you try to use it, it hurts you or it kills you or something like that. Sometimes there are harsher consequences, like it's actually taking part of their life force or their health and their well-being, where overuse can lead to exhaustion or death. Sometimes, which is actually really interesting, sanity is part of the cost, where the more you use it, the more insane you go. That's very, very cool for like a more horror-themed story and magic system. Do you remember Allomancy from Mistborn by chance? If you're not familiar, the system essentially uses magic stored up inside of bits of metal for various effects, and they are burned kind of like a furnace in the human stomach. It's pretty cool. Go look at that, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, if you want more details about that system. It's really cool. But you burn metals for magical power. But there's a few risks. One, you risk of running out of metals as you burn them as a cost. Also, if you keep them in your body, it can actually poison you. It is a very, very well done balance of risk-reward for a magic system. In a way, you could say without risks or consequences, your characters just become overpowered gods, and it just gets boring. It kills all of the stakes of the story and the tension. Okay, now, I said there was only 3, but here's a bonus one that I didn't mention before. Bonus! Rules and consistency. Consider this question. Are your rules hard, predictable, and scientific, like algebra, where input equals output? Or are they maybe soft, where they're mysterious and vague in some ways? Maybe poetic and evoking wonder, and might get too vague in some cases. Hard rules shine in problem-solving plots, like, for example, decoding and trying to figure out the different combinations of allomantic metals in Mistborn. However, a softer system builds wonder and awe, much like how Lord of the Rings is built. In my opinion, I think a hybrid is important to have, where you want that just jaw-dropping, holy crap, awe of a story, right? You want to be able to give that kind of feeling and experience to your readers. But you want it to make sense too. You want it to have structure. You want there to be rules and systems and guidelines. Now, as far as what you can do for this and actually making your own, let's start off with a bit of a practical tip. Try to aim for 3 to 5 core rules for your system. This will help you not to become overwhelmed, but give you a really good foundation to making a pretty cool and hopefully not too complex system that would be enjoyable for the majority of readers and consumers. After you've done all of these things to come up with your own system based off of those 3 fundamentals for your magic, you should have a pretty good idea of what your system is going to look like for your story. And I guess I probably should have mentioned this, but as I was talking through this, it would be a good idea. Maybe go back and actually start taking notes for your own systems to be able to implement these fundamentals if you're having troubles. All right, so now let's talk about some of the pitfalls and fixes that we can do to either existing systems or just problems we run into as we're making our current system. Now, a really big pitfall that hopefully you've avoided with much of the fundamentals is Deus Ex Machina. This is, if you're not familiar with what it is, it's basically, I think it's Latin for God in the machine, where basically you kind of just understand that no matter how bad things are going to get, there's just going to be some instant savior that just comes out of nowhere. Magic swoops in, saves everything, solves everyone's problems, no problems, whatever, without hardly any foreshadowing or setup. It feels really cheap and it's super frustrating for readers that have been excited for a very satisfying end. That Deus Ex Machina is just not satisfying. Here's another trap or pitfall. Inconsistency can be a huge issue, where maybe in chapter 1, your fire magic works one way, and then differently in chapter 10 or something like that. This breaks the trust you've built up with your reader. It's breaking a promise that something is going to work out because of the system, not because plot armor or the writer wanted it to be that way. One way I think, and has helped me to do this, to solve a lot of those basic pitfalls, come up with a world Bible. Make a structured document that has every rule, every little detail about your system and your world that helps you keep things in track and in line. And during the editing process, you can go back and review that and help you to have a better grasp of your world. And you'll be able to change things here and there. Hopefully little things, so it doesn't break the system later, to fix a lot of those issues and help you keep in track and keep you focused. If you've done everything right, there should be no real surprises at the very end. Of course, as readers, we want a twist. We want some crazy jaw-dropping ending, right? But we want it to be just surprising enough that we don't see it coming. But when it hits, it's like hindsight 2020. Oh yeah, duh. But then at the same time, we have both of those emotions where we're satisfied, but we're not blindsided, if that makes sense. Now, for you who are really serious about actually writing and trying to make a career out of this, consider this. Overcomplication is going to kill everything you're working on. If you have too many rules, too many things holding and locking things in place, it removes every bit of wonder you could possibly have, or any kind of wiggle room if something breaks as you're writing and you can't do anything about it. Just start simple, just one layer after another. Don't go crazy. If you get overwhelmed or overstimulated, back up a bit. Find what works and find what makes you excited. Because if you're excited, likely other people will be too. If you're able to do all of these things and avoid all of these pitfalls, your magic won't just work, it will wow. Okay, now, here we go. What's the first exercise that we can maybe implement to get things working and moving for you right now? Let's get hands-on. Think of this like your career-boosting workout. Let's brainstorm a simple system real quick together. Say we go for some emotion-fueled system. The source would be internal feelings, most likely, like rage for fire or something, and calm for healing. To activate that source, you channel through gestures or words or something like that. Effect: a fireball that scales with emotional instability or intensity, right? Okay, but now what's the cost? Overuse could lead to emotional burnout, where rage might cause permanent anger issues. All right, pretty simple, pretty fast, quick and dirty. Now it's your turn. Pick a source, either innate, artifact, external, something, whatever. Add some kind of effect, then a cost, and 2 to 3 rules with associated consequences. Think of it like if this, then that kind of mindset. Jot it down, pause if needed, Here's an example really quick that I just came up with. My system source is ancient tattoos. Kind of cool. The cost is the ink fades over time, overuse, with limiting uses. It only works under moonlight. Super simple, but pretty interesting. Could see some really interesting applications of that in a world. Go ahead and share yours in the comments. I'd love to see some of the cool things you came up with while you're watching this video. And I'll try to reply to some of the favorites that I see. Now, this exercise isn't just fluff, right? It's actually going to help you spark some kind of development for your future manuscript, or the one you're working on if you're having problems with it. Whew, that was a lot. That was a lot, but hopefully it was helpful. We've laid out all the foundations to define magic systems. We unpacked sources, costs, rules, hopefully helped you dodge pitfalls, and even built a rudimentary first magic system. Now I think you're pretty armed to do what you want to do. Go write, share a story with someone. Now, are you wondering how deep into the rules you should be getting for your magic system? Stay tuned for my next video if you want to learn more about the hard versus soft magic systems. The ultimate balance of telling your story. If this fired up your creativity, smash that like button, subscribe, comment, you know the rules. Also, hitting the bell wouldn't be such a bad idea, especially if you want to see more stuff and future videos about magic systems. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. This is something I really love to do. I love helping people tell stories and helping people to escape their reality and then come back stronger to be able to attack their problems with vigor. And don't forget, there are no bad ideas, just unfinished ones. Take care.